We have to film her.
Oh.
We're recording it.
Well, yeah, we don't need to project it on screen, right?
No, but
Yeah.
we're recording it from here. Yeah.
You guys are all set? Judy?
Wow, look at all these smiling faces. People look so much different when they don't have a mask covering up their face. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am not going to use a microphone because this room has great acoustics. For those of you who are still checking in on Zoom and when you feel comfortable to show up in person, this meeting has great acoustics and you don't need a microphone. So I'm putting it down.
You might not Zoom.
We might not Zoom. Do I need the microphone for Zoom?
Can you guys hear him?
Yes.
Not you guys.
No, I'm talking to them.
I know. Are they nodding online? Because I'm blind.
Not online. If you can hear him, share.
Yes.
Yes, you
I
can.
hear Cher. Okay, that's good. As long as Cher can hear, that's good enough. So we are here. It's beautiful outside. I don't know about you guys, but there's something about nice weather and a good night's sleep and not having to wear a mask that just puts a smile on my face. So we're glad you're here. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a minute with our speaker, and I'm to do so, Vicki Dello Joio. Is that pronounced?
Close, yeah.
Close? Judy's going to do an introduction for our speaker today, and then I'll come back up when she's done, and we'll proceed with the meeting accordingly. So welcome, everybody.
This is really fun. Vicki and I met in a course on how to be a great podcast guest, primarily, but that's not all. And then I interviewed her to find out her story, and I'm going to share a little bit about that with you right now. So Vicki fires up visionary speakers to amplify their charisma and deliver their message with passion, presence, and power. Her methods for both crafting stories and her focus on the energy behind how they are told have touched and transformed hundreds of speakers to stand and deliver with joy, confidence, and ease. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend, Vicki. Just about a 2 to 5, but we'll give you a 5 minute.
All right.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm so happy to see you and to be here. I have to say there's something about, do you want me to go into the microphone?
You gotta
stay in
stay, yeah.
in the frame.
In the frame.
Hi, Zoom folks. I'm glad you're here too. I wanted to just start by saying how I really love being able to be in a room full of writers and authors and a virtual room as well. I have so much deep respect for that. I know for me, writing my book was probably one of the deepest labor that I've ever done. It was really, really hard for me, and what I know is that whether you do nonfiction, business types of books, or you're doing poetry or prose or novels, that the stories that you bring and what you're doing is actually transformative. I believe that it's one of the most important things that we can do right now, so I really do feel honored to be able to speak to writers and authors. I hardly identify myself as that, even though I have written a book, but I'm an avid reader. When I was 5 years old or 6 years old, I remember coming home from the first day of first grade and saying, "Mom, I can read," because I could read, Mommy and Daddy and John and Abigail, or whatever the names of those little characters were. So it's a passion to go to the library and get 5 or 6 books out at once so that I could just dive into stories. Stories are a big passion for me. So I have a question that I want to ask you. And I don't know if Zoom folks can put in the chat or if anybody's looking at the chat, but I would love to know from you, when you go to a reading of somebody else, how many of you are, first of all, identify as writers and authors? Everybody, right? Because that's what this group is. And have you done, how many of you have done readings, whether they're live or virtual? Yeah. So when you go to somebody else's reading or event, what stands out for you in terms of what really makes for a good reading or a good speaker?
Passion about what they're expressing.
Oh, I so agree. Passion about what they're expressing.
Practiced.
Practiced. They know what they're going to say. They know what they're going to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, and listen to some criticisms so that you may improve.
Say that again?
Listen to some criticisms.
Oh, be open to getting
so that you
feedback.
may improve.
Yeah, get open to be getting feedback so that you can get better and better. What else stands out for you when you see them? Yeah.
Connection.
Connection, yes.
Projection.
Projection, big thing. Yeah.
Eye contact.
Eye contact, yeah.
Authenticity for the material that he or she has researched, so that I can believe that even fiction has to really be based in reality what's being told.
Yes.
So I don't want them to be thinking, and you can tell.
You really can. It really shows, doesn't it? It's, yeah. Yes.
Reading
yes.
with expression and not going too fast. I've been to so many readings where it's very monotone and you kind of lose interest in parts of it.
I think that's so real. I really get that. I mean, I think the thing is that, you know, that no matter how strong the message is or whatever it is that you're wanting to convey as a writer, or when you're listening to a writer, that it's really easy to kind of go into that place where it can be monotone, or it can be just sort of, it's something that people do, and I think it's because a lot of writers are introverts, so it's a little bit intimidating. I remember in the conversation that I had with you, Judy, that you said that when you're fine talking about other people, but when you talk about yourself, you feel like you've thrown yourself under the bus, that it's hard to do. I think that's true for a lot of writers. I don't know about each one of you, but I know that that's been true for a lot of my clients. Yeah.
Just for you to think about, next week, 40 of our writers are going to read their poetry at a poetry launch for the new book.
Oh, that's exciting.
So everything you say today can help this group of writers next week.
Oh, I hope that that's true. That's beautiful. I'm excited to hear that. I'm going to have to tap in on Zoom. Yeah.
There's one online comment too, Vicki, interactive, like the speaker engages with the audience.
Yes. Yes, so that it doesn't feel like it's unilateral, like I'm just pushing information out at you and you're just sort of passively absorbing it. I think that's also a really big deal. I think there's another piece of it, and I think that you've touched on it when you talked about authenticity, or when, you know, not faking it or something like that. And I call that energy, because I believe that the energy you bring to everything you do is what matters most. Because, and for readers or for speakers, it can push people away or it can draw them right to you. You know, it's you know, a lot of people think about energy in terms of healing arts like Reiki or acupuncture or acupressure. But there's actually energy in the stories that you tell, both in terms of what you say or how you craft what you're going to say and how you tell it. And for me, that those things are super key. That's what matters the most. So what I want to talk to you today about is presentation when you're doing a reading, particularly in those spots where you're introducing a story or a passage, or you're talking about what brought you there, or you're giving a context, that when you're speaking extemporaneously as opposed to just reading. You know, I want to give you some tools that I believe are really crucial to have your message land. Does that sound like something you want to hear?
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad some of you said yes, because I'm an improver and I'm always wondering, do I have to get, you know, another talk and quickly give you that one? So I just, before I get into it, I think the main thing I want to say is that I think that passion, presence, and power are the three keys that I want to talk about in terms of what it is to really deliver in a way that lands for people. Before I get into it, though, I'll just tell you a little bit about me. I know that Judy gave me that introduction, but just so you know, I grew up in New York City. I just want to give you a little place of like transparent. Where am I coming from? I grew up in New York City, and where I grew up in, the cultures that I grew up in, was very nitty-gritty. What you see is what you get. You're defined by what you do and what do you do and how do you do it. And it's very, it makes me think about the way buildings are in New York, where there's, the sky is shaped like geometric shapes when you look up. So I know that for me, I started to do martial arts because I wanted to kick through those obstacles. I just wanted to kind of get through them. I also felt like I wanted to de-stress myself from the type of obligation that I was feeling when I was in New York. I was really afraid when I decided to move to California, this is quite a while ago, that I was going to become one of those woo people, whose feet barely touch the ground, who, they're just kind of off, everything is fine, and sort of spiritual bypass. I was really afraid I was going to believe in energy, which is something you can't touch. And I have to confess that's how I've been making my living for the last 40 plus years. So I have become my own worst fear, just to be transparent about who I am and where I come from. And I did tell that story. I don't know, how many of you saw that interview with Judy? I don't think you have. Oh, you haven't? Okay, good. So I wasn't sure if I should tell some of those stories or not tell some of those stories. Anyway, I basically what I do is I support speakers and shy entrepreneurs, artists, storytellers, writers, CEOs, lawyers, business professionals. I support them in learning how to deliver their message so that it lands and they're able to have the kind of impact that you all know you were put on this planet to have. When you're writing, you have something that you want to deliver. So it's really about how do you stand and deliver. And I do this in two ways. One is through this Qigong, which is a Chinese martial art for healing, which I'll be talking about a little bit, and then the other is through my many decades now of being a theater performer. I performed and directed countless shows. I've been in it since I was 7 years old, and you can see from my gray head that that's been a while ago. And I also have helped a lot of speakers come up with their About Me story, which I'm kind of rambling a little bit, so I'm maybe not modeling it the best way, but I wanted to just give you a little bit of sense of who I am and where I'm coming from, because I believe that these two things, the energy that you can bring, which I'm going to talk a little bit about from the martial arts, as well as presentation skills, are really sort of that secret sauce that make your message land. So without further ado, I think what I'll do is I'll just go right into it. There's in Qigong, which is, how many people have heard of Qigong? Most of you. So for those of you who haven't, it's a Chinese martial art that's used either for healing, sometimes for martial arts, sometimes as a spiritual practice. And in it, there's basically 3 concepts of heaven, human, and earth. Well, I like to talk about passion, presence, and power. So I'm going to start first about passion, which is in what's called the human realm in Qigong. And I'm not going to get too much into the weeds about that, but the bottom line is, you said it, when the speaker has passion about what they do, when they really care about it, when they're really delivering from their heart, you can really feel it. So if somebody is just like rambling on, and or they're being super, super convincing and trying to get their point across, already that's kind of back you up, right? Or if they're just in that monotone that you were talking about, and they're just like, so this is what I wrote, and this is why I'm doing it, and this is what I want to say about this, and that's what I want to say, that it becomes really flat. So the question becomes, how do we get that passion in a way that's most expressive? And there's a concept in Qigong called Wei Qi. It's also in traditional Chinese medicine, which basically it means what protects us from pathogens and allergens. But in the martial art, what it is the energy that is coming out of you. So for example, if you go to a party and somebody is there and you feel like, I'll see you later, I'm not quite drawn to that person, or you feel like, oh, I want to know a little bit more about you. That is this field called Wei Qi. A lot of times people think, okay, it's just about their body language or their tone of voice, but there's actually a field that we read even if we don't believe in energy. My first experience with Wei Qi was, I was doing a lot at the time, I was doing a lot of fighting arts. I had been beat up on the street for being queer, and I really wanted to learn how to protect myself on the street. So I started, so I was doing something called Kajikembo. It's a fighting art. And I had done Tai Chi for years before that, but I was really learning self-defense. One day, I'm walking home from the kun, or the dojo, where I was working out, and I was breaking up with my partner at the time. For some reason, our teacher thought it would be a great idea for us to fight each other, to spar and kick each other in the dojo, and then we'd be at home and yelling at each other. We were not physically violent with each other, but it was not the prettiest time in my life. And as I was walking down the street, a guy walked around the corner. When he walked around the corner, it was that same thing of like what you can see with somebody. Just have you ever felt that? You know, where it's just kind of, yeah, right? It's funky energy. I didn't go into a fighting stance. I just stood tall. I don't know how else to describe it. I just stood tall, and he reached out to grab me, actually to grab my breast, and his hand bounced about a foot and a half away from my body. So he didn't actually make contact. He walked away looking at his hand, looking at me, looking at his hand. So I knew he hadn't missed, but it was something that he felt. It was palpable. I have hundreds of stories now from myself and my clients about the actual reality of this as a field, right? I'm talking now to my New York self and saying, oh no, don't talk about this. No, really, this is real. No, it can't be real. But I have that going on, and just so you know what's going on in the back of my mind. I realized at that point, I actually got home and a teacher called me, a Qigong teacher called me and said, you're watching what you're doing. I think you really need to focus on the internal arts right now instead of the external ones. So I began studying Qigong, and that's when I learned about this field called Wei Qi. When we are on stage, when we are going to do a reading, when we're doing a presentation, I think it can really benefit us to think about emanating out a field. Are you interested in that? Does that feel too woo-woo for you, or are you good? Because, you know, my clients call me a renegade woo coach because I'm very practical on one hand, and on the other hand, I love tapping into this greater sense of what's possible. So one of the things that you can do just to kind of cultivate that sense of presence is to put your hands on your heart. In fact, if you want to do it with me, I won't feel so lonely. Oh, thank you for taking care of me. Okay, so we're going to circle the hands over the heart, just over the center of your chest, which is actually your thymus gland. It's not your physical heart, which is, of course, on the left side of your chest. And then go around in the other direction. Good. And change again. That's just circle. It's not, there's no, it's not big science here, and then around the other way. So the thymus gland is actually the center of our immune system, but this is also a way to just kind of soothe your heart. And then if you think about what it is that my message is, what is it that I want people to know, whether it's about the process of writing my book, whether it's about the content that's in the book, whether it's about something that feels like it's resonant for the audience that you're speaking with, just take a moment to think about that in your heart. And then if you just open your arms out and just imagine going from your heart out through the middle fingers, why don't you try it, see how it feels. And what happens if you actually stretch your arms? I know you're sitting next to somebody, but yeah, you can, beautiful, yes. And there's a movement called Wei Qi where you basically just circle your arms and you imagine spreading that energy out around you. So whatever it was. So for me, it's like, I really want to connect with other writers. I want to be able to serve other writers so that you sell many books and that you bring many people into your sphere. So this is my intention here, all the way out. And then you can make fists with your thumbs on the inside and then ground. And when I say ground, I just mean bring your hands down by your sides. That's beautiful, beautiful. The second element that I want to talk about is presence. So presence has to do, so let me just quickly break it down. Heaven realm is this, I think of this as 3 realms of consciousness that comes from this Taoist form. Heaven realm is all about your perspective, your sense of wisdom, your seeing the whole picture, your ability to tap into guidance, or if you want to think about that. Some people talk about downloads that they get. The human realm is all about your heart and how you connect with people, how that reciprocity happens. In fact, this is the summertime. This is the time when considered to be the lotus time, which is, there's a concept in the lotus of being with your cobra and your lamb. And the cobra has to do with your passion, what you really care about, what really matters. And the lamb has to do with reciprocity, that sense of being able to be connected with one another. So when you think about the cobra, it's really about what are the convictions that I have? What are the things that really matter, whether it's social justice or whatever the content of your book happens to be, whatever sort of turns on that I must do this, that call that says I must do this. When I go into the heaven realm, that's when I start thinking about presence. I started with the human realm, the passion, because that is the most resonant field in our bodies. For those of you familiar with heart math, where they've actually scientifically measured, the resonance of energy from somebody, they found that this area around the heart center is the most resonant energy. Presence has to do with this sense of tapping into the clarity of your vision, the clarity of what you want to say, the clarity of why you're doing what you're doing, and that ability to then just tap into guidance to bring it through you. It's really, for me, when I first sort of tapped into what this was about, I was living in San Francisco at the time. I was walking across the street one day. I'm walking across the street. I look over my shoulder. I see this car coming up to a stop sign. I think, fine, and I keep walking. Well, he didn't stop. He came and he hit me at about 30 miles an hour. I got thrown massive feet. I don't even know how far. And in that moment, when I was up in the air, it was like this, I was like a seed inside of a hull. I was looking around inside of my body and I was thinking, wow, I really am not just my body. There's something else here. This was kind of one of those mind-opening, mind-expanding moments. I thought to myself, I can stay in this body or I can go. And it wasn't a given that I wanted to stay at that point. I was a little bit depressed. I was very overworked. I was really not happy in a bunch of different ways. And so I was really like, what do you want? And I decided to stay, obviously. And I landed in a martial arts roll. I opened my eyes, I'm coming in to the ground really fast, land in a martial arts roll, jump up, do this Wei Chi that we just did, and the guy leaps out of his car saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? Lie down. We just hit you. We gotta lie down. So I think I scared him. I did lie down, and it turned out that I walked away pretty much fine. I was a little twisted from the speed at which he hit me and bruised. I remember the doctors and nurses sitting around going, she's supposed to be dead from the double impact of the car and the concrete. But this moment of being in this time out of time, and for those of you who've been in a car accident or some kind of life-threatening situation, I'm sure you know what I mean when I say time out of time. Time just stands still, and there's like a kind of a moment of eternity in a single second. That's when I started to think about what does it mean to tap into that observer self, to be able to have the clarity of what do I want and how do I want to do it and where is it that I'm going to go. And that led to a huge shift in the life that I was living at that time. So when we're about to do a talk, we want to tap into what is that part. It's not just the why am I doing it, but the clarity of what is it that I want people to understand. What is it that I want them to understand? You want to tap into something bigger than just you. By the way, this is super helpful for stage fright, because when you have stage fright, right, that's when you clamp down. So the basic technique is so simple. You're going to just lengthen your spine. I call it standing tall. Check your time. Just standing tall. So you want to lift through the crown of your head. In fact, you sit tall. Yeah, beautiful. You're going to lift the crown of your head, lengthen the back of your neck. And that allows energy to travel among the bones of your spine. It also opens up the crown, which is called the byway point, which brings in energy. Now, for those of us who ever get stuck writing, I know for me, writer's block is, especially while I was writing my book, it was just like, oh, that blank page. That was the scariest place for me to be. I know for some of you, it's probably like, oh, yay, the blank page. But for me, it was like, I would do a little qigong. I would do this standing tall before I would sit down to it, because that allows that guidance, that sense of, sometimes I feel like when we're writing and we're really in the zone, something's coming through us. Does that feel like that to you? Not so much? Yes, no? A few of you are nodding. Do you know what I'm talking about? You do. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you. That when we're letting that kind of come through, and it's coming through our own unique voice, right? But we're tapping into something that's bigger than us. That's a bigger. I don't know how you might think of it. I think of it as guides or gods or goddesses or higher power. That coming through, when we can tap into that, it's a great way to get rid of writer's block. It's also a great thing to tap into before you're about to speak or before you're about to do a presentation, because it allows you to know it's not just about you, it's about this message that's coming through you. One of my favorite ways to tap into this is called the shower. You willing to do another movement with me?
Do you want us to stand up?
If you'd like. Please stand up, if you are able, as you are able. And going to stand with your feet apart. Thank you, Judy. Great suggestion. Soften your knees, drop your tailbone, and imagine that your sits bones are connected to your heels. And let's just bounce a little bit. It's good. And let your hands down. Right? So sometimes this is a really good thing to do also when you have a lot of brain mutter going on and you just have to kind of come back to center. Just shaking off some of that can really make a big difference. And so we're going to just do this movement where you lift your arms up, inhale, and exhale. Just imagine that you're bringing light or sound vibration from the heavens down through your body. So as your hands come up, you're inhaling, and you're just imagining like you create a kind of a cup. Beautiful, nice. And then it's coming down through your body. And we're going to lift the crown of the head as the hands come down. Okay, so let's see what that means. Come up, the chin is down, don't lift your chin, but lift the crown of your head. Just think about growing like a giraffe's neck behind your neck, yeah. And one more time, breathing in, and breathing out. And then make fists with your thumbs on the outside this time of your fists, and then ground. Nice. Okay, you can sit down. But I'd love to know, did you notice anything from doing either one of those? Did either of those feel anything, or they just feel like, why did she make us do that? You know, tell me what you felt, or put it in the chat. Nothing? Yes, speak.
I like this movement down, and I focused, whether it matters or not, focusing on my fingers was interesting.
What did you notice in your fingers?
Well, it just changed my perspective, and I was thinking about my body differently. But I really liked this part of that movement. I thought that was really interesting.
Yes, I love that. And the thing is when you're bringing your hands down, it's really about grounding whatever it is that you, whatever that is, that sense of possibility, because the heaven realm is all about your full potential. Whatever you imagine can be real. I have this image that I'm going to write a book, and then you're holding the book. Well, the space in between that is this filtering down that comes through the crown down through your body and out your hand into the pen or the computer. Any other observations? Please just let me know. If you didn't feel anything, that's fine. I won't be hurt. I just love to know. Yeah.
You said it actually in one sentence, it was perfect, and that is getting out of your own way. And if you're writing a novel or if you're working in retail, don't let yourself get caught up in, am I right or good enough or whatever. Think about your character or the customer in front of you, and you do know what to say, you do know your stuff, but you're blocking it because you want to get the right word or something stupid. And stupid means you're getting caught in the mechanics.
Yeah.
So in these exercises that you're showing us, I think part of that is really getting out of the way of your own stuff and letting the character come onto the page.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's
Weeks away.
Or the screen or whatever. Yeah, that's exactly right, because getting out of our own way is what, that's actually going to lead really well into the next piece that I want to talk about. But I think that this idea of quieting the brain mutter, what I call the brain mutter, so that you can really go to the intention and really fulfill the impact that you want to make is foundational. It's so important.
I was going to say it's both calming and expansive at the same time.
Yes. I know. That's the thing I love about Qigong is it does tend to allow us to really expand and then it comes back to center. The other thing I love about this, the concepts in Qigong is that there's a sense of expansion and contraction. So how many of you have ever done a reading or a speaking thing or something where you were expanding your energy, right? You were out there in front of people taking that risk. And afterwards you were like, oh my God, I felt tired. How many of you ever felt that since, right? So a few of you, at least a few of you are telling me, that's something that was, for me, that was like, that contraction was something that took me a while to get. I used to do I still do a lot of theater. I'm in a theater company for 26 years now, but I used to do this solo show, a lot of them, and I would do up a show, then it would get great reviews, things would be fine, I would be like, yay, I did it, and then afterwards it would be like, that was awful, you forgot that line, you fluffed this, get back in the box, you know, it's like, get back, get small again. I realized through my study of Qigong that everything in nature expands and contracts, right? Flowers open and close, night goes into day, goes into night. There's this sense of expansion and contraction, which brought me to the question is, what would contraction look like if it wasn't self-punishing, or if I wasn't trying to get myself to be small again? What does contraction look like then? Then I started to look at how do I build in knowing that contraction's gonna happen, right? What am I gonna do tomorrow after talking to you, first live audience in 2 years? You know, what am I gonna do to take care of myself instead of going into the analysis? Now, you said be open to feedback of how to be a better speaker, and I think that that's good, but you can only incorporate that if you're not contracting into that sort of self-punishing, self-denigrating place. I think that's useful for all artists, personally. I don't know if that's useful for you.
One quick comment, because it's online here, and we don't have kids. If there's questions or responses from the audience, do you mind just repeating them so that people online?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. I'm sorry that I didn't even think of that. So, yes. Anything else? Yeah.
I haven't done this for a while. I used to do it a lot. And it's really nice because it makes you so conscious how all the parts of yourself are connected. And on a regular basis, I don't even think about that.
Yes.
You know, I think about, oh, I gotta move this leg.
Right, thinking about yourself as different body parts. So she was just saying that she liked that it made her feel integrated, like every different part of yourself is connected. Is that,
Yeah.
and that there's something calming. Sorry?
To be able to remember.
And to remember that, it's something that she doesn't keep in her consciousness all the time. So yes, that's right, it's very, very integrative in that way. Anything else? Yeah, Judy.
So the biggest takeaway I can put out there is when we were doing the shower, it also opened up my lungs, because you had to start with our knees bent, which is important. If your knees are bent, your diaphragm's open. If your knees are locked, you are screwed. Well, you are. I mean, can you show them, Vicki, what happens if you get rigid and then try to talk?
Okay, I'm going to try to project. I don't think I can do very well. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but yeah. It not only opens your diaphragm, but that also is something it's called the solar plexus bowl, and that's the fountain of your Wei Qi. That's what allows your heart to come open. If this area is open and relaxed, it allows the heart to open. I didn't know I was going to go into all this territory, so, but I'm loving the questions and the comments and wisdom. And thank you for that. Locking your knees basically cuts you off from the earth, which is basically the next thing I want to talk about. Before I do, were there other questions or comments anybody has? Yes.
I have just a thought. I don't think I go through depression after speaking, but I really don't think I do very much. But what I tended to do, and I see in others, in actors too, is they're going to criticize the audience. They're going to criticize the other speakers. In other words, rather than being self-critical, they're going into sort of a compression.
Yeah, so it depends on if you're extra punitive or intra.
Maybe, yeah. I just could see that kind of difference.
Yeah.
Is that some, it's like you sit for an hour and you're not saying about yourself, you say, what a crappy audience, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Salespeople do this quite a bit.
Yes. And either way, it's not helpful.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, either way, it's not
I didn't mean
resourceful.
you, Sean, I just was saying.
Did you have something you were going to say back there? I saw you move your hand, but
No,
no.
I
Okay, so I want to go into the final piece that I wanted to talk about, which has to do with power. So what does power mean? You're probably familiar with the idea of the difference between power over and power within. So obviously I'm talking about power within. I'm not talking about how can I dominate or how can I conquer this. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the power that can come when we are truly in our own grounding. And I think that this is so important, particularly for stage fright. Because you think, how many of you actually experience stage fright? Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been performing since I was 7 years old, and I still feel it. It still comes up. How I use it and how I respond to it is different than it used to be. But it's an energy to tap into. When we are having stage fright, we tend to. I said this a little earlier. We tend to curl down, right? We tend to compress our diaphragm. We tend to sort of get a little bit shyer, or we get to a place where it's like, it becomes what you were saying, all about me, right? This is really relating to what you were talking about when you were saying focusing out as opposed to focusing in. So we want to be able to tap into that. There's a transformational process we can do because all of it is energy. And in all of these healing arts, energy is when it's stagnant, is when it causes harm on our health, our emotional body, our mental body, our spiritual connection. When we're stuck, when it's not moving, when we can open up to a flow, that's when all of a sudden things can come through us that we may not even expect, and it allows us to be really grounded with whatever it is that is coming up. So stage fright is a big one. Fear is a big one. So sometimes I think about it as like taking that sort of trembling energy and just letting it actually tremble through my whole body. I once did a fire walk. Have any of you ever done a fire walk? It was really terrible. Does everyone know what a fire walk is? It's hard to talk about fire at this time. This was before the fires really were so bad here, but they build a big fire, they bring it down to hot coals, and people walk across it with their bare feet. That's basically what it is. You're shaking your head. It's like, no, not me. I had this idea that like, someday I'd like to do a fire walk, but if it's only if a woman leads it. I want to see a woman lead it, and then I'll do it. This was before email and anything. I got a flyer in the mail the next day about a woman leading a fire walk. I was like, oh no, now I have to do this. Walking up to that line of coals, which was long, it was like as far as you guys can't see it, but all the way towards where actually maybe the whole length of this width of this room. It was long. It was not like step on, step off. As I was walking up to it, the heat was shimmering. Right? It was like, and that was what was happening. I mean, I could feel this. My whole body. I've never been so terrified. And I had been given permission. The leader, to her credit, had said, if you get there and you don't want to do it, don't do it. It's fine. You don't have anything to prove. Sometimes it's even more powerful to say no to something than it is to just go ahead and do something. So I had permission, but I had the sense that I really wanted to do it. And as I got close to the fire, coals, I started to think about what if this shimmering energy what if I just became one with that? What if this, because my body was shaking, what if my body shaking was the same thing as this shimmering that I was seeing? You know what I mean? When the air looks like it's almost palpable. So I took the walk across. I had this real intention of what I wanted to walk towards, and I didn't burn anything. Although when I stepped off, I was going, oh my gosh, I must have burned my feet. I can feel my feet. But it was just cold, wet grass. So that was what I felt was burning. It was not burning. I was fine. I didn't even have a blister. I think the possibility of transformation, whether it's transformation from fear into love, or it's transformation from feeling stuck to feeling flow, is really critical for those of us who are doing anything public in front of people, especially when you're doing readings, because this is really what I'm thinking about, is you are all writers, but that you all share this, and that you can have this big event next week for the poets. there's a lot about what I could say about this. This is grounded in what's called the earth realm. The earth realm is where compost happens, right? It's where our waste turns into fertilizer. And we can tap into this composting process, which is, of course, a metaphor, but it's also something very real energetically. I have one story I want to tell you fairly briefly. A student of mine, I used to teach at JFKU, and they had a holistic studies graduate program. I used to teach classes there. She came up to me one day. She comes up to me. She's about 7 months pregnant, maybe 7.5 months pregnant. She says to me, "You know, Vicki, I was at a workshop you did last year. You talked about boundaries." Which is a whole other talk, right? That was the one I would pull out if you hadn't wanted to hear this. And she said, she said, you were talking about boundaries, and I remember asking you about how to create good energetic boundaries, and you showed me an exercise, and I used it recently. Can I tell you what happened? I said, of course. She says, my fiance and I went to Golden Gate Park. We were arranging for him to propose to me. Golden Gate Park is where we used to get together on our early dates. We knew that this baby was coming. It was time to get married. I actually designed the ring, but we had this whole little process that we were going to do together. We sit down at a bench. He gets on his knees. He proposes, will you marry me? I say yes. He then sits up on the bench with me. We spend some time talking back and forth about the family that we're creating, about what we want to see for our future. They were both holistic healers, what they wanted to do with their work, what they wanted to do with their family. A guy walks up to them as they're sitting on the bench. He's carrying this kind of homemade raggedy sign. He comes up, he says, "You got any money?" She, startled, she looks up, she says, "No. I don't. We're having an important moment here, so if you don't mind, we'd just like to go back to speaking to one another." He says, "Well, I'm having a moment too." Then he says, "Are you pregnant?" You know, she says yes. He says, "Well, I hope your baby dies." She says that at that moment, it felt like a snake had bit her, and that venom was going through her whole body. It was traveling through. She was so terrified that this was going to kill her baby. Her fiancé is saying, "Oh, honey, Michelle, don't worry. This is fine. He's just crazy. He's unhappy. He doesn't have any power. Nothing's going to happen. You're fine." But she had this inner sense of something was so dangerous and so scary to her. I was like, "What did you do?" She says, I stood up, I stand up. I put my feet apart. I start to practice the lotus waft that you taught me. Now the lotus waft, again, this is summer, so it's really that's what part of why this story came to my mind. The lotus is a form that helps celebrate the heart, which is the organ of summer in Qigong, and it works with this cobra lamb thing I was talking about. It's a beautiful walking form. It's got a lot of metaphor in it. It's got a lot of teaching in it. But part of it is something called the lotus waft. She started doing the lotus waft, which looks like this. She has her feet apart. She says, as she's doing this movement, her fiancé comes up and joins her, begins to move with her. She imagines herself sending love out from her center to that old couple sitting on the bench reading newspapers, to the young couple there with their little kid at the seesaw, to the young man walking his dog. Then she expands out. She imagines the man who came to her with such aggression and imagines that he finds what he needs, that whatever makes him so angry that he would attack and try to hurt somebody emotionally, if nothing else, that he find what he needs, that he be healed. This becomes an embodied prayer for her. I say, well, did that help? She said, absolutely. She said she felt like all of a sudden she knew her baby was safe, that she felt completely calm, that she was able to release this sense of being aggressed on in that way, that everything changed for her. Sometimes I imagine what would have happened if something, if she hadn't had a tool or something had happened to her baby. It's incredible. This happened, I think it's like 12 years ago. So the baby was born, all happy, healthy, all is well in that department. But there's something that the reason that I'm telling you this story is that I believe through our energies and tapping into the presence, tapping into the passion, and tapping into the possibility of transformation through our power, that everything is possible. And this is my prayer for you as writers, because I believe that writers are part of what can change this world that's so out of balance. We need your stories, we need your information, we need your data, we need who you are to come through your words. When you're writing, it's a very different animal from speaking. So when you go up and you're going to be doing a presentation and doing a reading, part of it is learning how to modulate your voice, as you were saying, so that you're not in monotone. But the other part is, what are the stories that you're going to tell that help frame this story? What is it that's going to make this story or this passage alive for people? And so I'm hoping that these tools, the Wei Chi, the shower, and let's do something for the power part. I have time, so you willing to do something with me? Play a little game? Yeah? All right, come up, come here. Yeah, I know. Oh, wait a minute, no, that's a little too far. No, come on, I'm kidding. Come on. Let's just stand in a semicircle so that our friends here can at least see some of us. This is actually a little theater game.
Come in a little closer.
I think there's room over here, Roger.
Okay.
Thank you for joining me up here. This feels so good. What I'd like you to do is I'd like this one at a time for you to just put your hands on your heart for a moment. Tap into what it is that you might want to say in this safe, contained group. What is it you might want to say about your work or you yourself as a writer, or a quality that you want to bring out? You're nodding, so something's coming to your mind, hopefully. But what is it that what do you want to say? And then I'd like you to just tap your feet on the ground for a second. And then, let's see, I know that we're close to each other, so we might stagger a little bit, but put your arms down. Actually, relax your arms. I'm changing my mind. What I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have one person, whoever's willing, to say what that message was, and we'll just echo it like a call and response. Okay? And if you can, I'd like you just to strike some kind of a pose as you say it. So for example, it would be, I want writers to be heard and seen everywhere. And then you would echo that. So who is willing to do something? Come on. Yes?
My story is worth telling.
My story is worth telling. Would you go ahead and strike a pose? I don't care what it is. It can be subtle.
Doesn't have to be Madonna.
It doesn't have to be. Yeah. Say it. Say it. Do it and say it. My story.
My story is worth telling.
So he did my story. Let's all do it. Ready? My story is worth telling. I think it's a good affirmation for all of us. Who else? Yes.
It's uplifting to tell a story.
It's uplifting to tell a story. Come on.
I love to tell the truth.
I love to tell the truth.
Amen.
Okay, so I want somebody else to go, but I'd like you to do some other gesture than that. Okay?
I want my writing to flow.
I want my writing to flow. Who else?
I know it. Our words connect us.
Our words connect us.
Always learning.
Show us a movement.
I just did.
Yeah.
You didn't hear my ankle crack.
You took a step forward, but see if
I
you
tried
can.
to raise my head.
Okay.
Always learning.
Always learning. Not going anywhere till I see at least 2 more.
Okay. My writing brings joy to children.
My writing brings joy to children.
Mine doesn't, man. Come on.
My writing brings understanding.
My writing brings understanding. One more. Yes.
My family history inspires people.
My family history inspires people. Okay, turn your back away from the center of the circle, and you're just going to say your own affirmation just for yourself, so you don't have to be on camera, you don't have to have that sense of pressure. But please say something and just strike a pose, okay? Go.
I am invincible.
Was that true? Didn't sound true. All right, good. And come back around. Nice. Thank you. All right.
Couldn't resist.
You could have. You could have. So go have a seat.
The Zoom audience did not get all of that, I have to tell you.
Sorry?
The Zoom audience
They
missed
just
out
saw,
on
they
that.
just saw, they just got to see me mirrored. Yeah.
That was
Sorry,
great.
guys. But I'd love, does anybody on Zoom have anything that they want to say about their writing? Do any of you have anything you want to say? Please do. And if you can do a gesture for your Zoom,
I'm not seeing any new comments in here.
okay, all right. Well, I think I can bring this to a close in terms of my presentation, but are there any questions or comments that you have that you'd like me to know, feedback to make me grow as a speaker or anything else? Well, wow, that's a resounding, yes.
I found you speaking very comfortable. You're not, it's not like you're speaking at us. You're speaking to us.
Oh, I'm
And
glad.
I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good, good, thank you. And I want to be clear, I wasn't actually asking you for, I love hearing that. And I wasn't asking you for critiques about my speaking. I really want to know, what's most important to me is there anything that I said that was useful, important, a takeaway, or something else that you would like to know about something that I said? Yes.
I think the postures, how to combat stage fright, and, some of those postures that you gave us and movements, I think were really helpful.
Good. Do you get stage fright?
Sure.
And what happens when you do, when you get stage fright? What kind of things happen for you when you get it?
Oh, I just get jittery and nervous and talk too fast, and then I just kind of have to stop and breathe. And,
Yes. This is so
Then I'm
key.
okay.
Yeah, it's so key to breathe. In fact, let's do a little bit of a breathing exercise real quick.
We have a comment just for you, so you can think about this, that your presentation has made this person want to learn more about what you've talked about.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you for saying that. If you want to have a conversation about it, check out yourpowerpresence.com, and I can tell you answer what other questions or you have about wanting to know more. Thank you for that. So, did anybody else have a comment before I show you this little breathing exercise? This is a really good, yes, go ahead.
Well, I thought that your point about power and differentiating between external power and inner power
Yes.
is really an interesting one.
She's saying that she feels like what I said about power, the difference between external power and internal power was really interesting. I actually think of it as not even so much as external and internal as power over and power within. Because when we have power within, it can be very externalized. You can feel that, right? When somebody's a very charismatic speaker or somebody that feels like, really it moves you in a certain way, that's externalized Wei Qi, but it's coming from that internal place, as opposed to trying to overwhelm you, trying to get at you, trying to get through to you, trying to push on you. So I thank you for that. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things I got out of this is the ability to tap into a power, not feel like we have to
have all that power within ourselves, whatever that other power is, that we're really a conduit. I mean, that's what I got from most is, we hear a lot about grounding and centering, but we are, as writers and authors and speakers, we're conduits for other collective energies that come through us out into the works that we write.
Yes. So he was just saying that what he's walking away with is this idea of being a conduit, and that we hear a lot, I'm going to summarize, we hear a lot about grounding and centering, but we don't really talk that much about, as writers, that we are vessels, or we are conduits, that we bring energy through us. Is that what is that a fair summary? Yes.
Yeah, I just wonder if anyone else has felt that where stuff comes from somewhere, and you look back on it and go, where did that come from? How did that, when did I write that?
So he was asking.
I look back on things that I've written years ago, and it's like, I don't really remember writing that. But
So
there it is in my handwriting and
yes.
on my computer or whatever.
Yes. So he's asking if other people in the room, including you guys on Zoom, have any of you felt that, of being a conduit? Because he's had experiences where he's like, where did that even come from? Or he looks back at writing that he's done years ago and doesn't even know what was speaking.
I also think a lot of it is your subconscious. That I know when I think about things and I'm in, bringing stuff in, and then hours, weeks, months later, my unconscious mind has been working on that, and then it just comes out.
So he just said that he also feels that part of it is the function of the unconscious or the subconscious, that he can be putting something out, and months later or weeks later, he can all of a sudden feel that his subconscious has been working on that. So it's sort of almost like a problem solving maybe, or a discovery process from what's happening underneath. So that's all earth realm, because there's a lot I didn't say about earth realm, but this part about it's not just about compost, it's also about standing on the shoulders of our ancestors, both our biological ancestors or the ancestors who have been in the field that we're in, so standing on their shoulders. And when we're bringing things up from the unconscious is all about what's underground, right? It's under the surface. How do we bring that up and out in a way that's useful? And sometimes it just happens by itself. I mean, they do say that 90% of what we do is actually ruled by our subconscious. I don't know if you've heard that, but it's in positive psychology, they talk a lot about that. So it's something that's running us, but when we can start to bring that up to consciousness and really let ourselves explore that, then we're actually able to use it in a way that, again, is resourceful, as opposed to something that would keep us stuck. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
I just want to say, it was interesting to me to kind of connect what you were talking about with what I do in my classroom, because I'm a special education teacher as well as being a writer. And, I do with the kids things to get them grounded, and, I know when they need to move and when they need to quiet. And the autistic children, a lot of them do this, a lot of hand clapping.
Yes.
And a lot of educators, it's like, oh, that's kind of a bad thing to do. But I've done it, man. It feels
helps.
pretty good to do this.
Especially when you're stressed, right?
Yeah,
It's like get it
or
out of
they're
your body.
excited,
It's wise, yeah. So she was just saying that she's a special ed teacher as well as a writer, and that what she knows in the classroom is that sometimes the kids, particularly autistic kids, will embody something that, she'll try it herself and she'll feel it, rather than try to squelch it or say, don't do that or don't fidget, that she lets that happen, and sometimes she does it herself and she feels like, she goes, oh, that feels really good, that's something I want. Is that a fair summary?
Right, yeah, and circle time, they've been playing, it's like, take a big breath.
Circle time, taking a deep breath
and
and
relax.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought it was fun and helpful to think about, what do I want to share with people, and have that vision. And I know for myself, even with a theater background, when I started focusing on my audience rather than on myself, most of the time my nerves don't get in my way.
Right.
Most of the time, not 100%, but most of the time.
So she was, Judy was saying that she was thinking for herself that it was fun to think about when bringing that clarity. I'm trying to go back to bringing that clarity through, that when she can really focus on sending energy out or speaking out and thinking about who she's speaking to. I think of it as actually literally sending love, as opposed to how she's doing most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, she's able to really then be in the zone of what you want to convey. Is that right?
Yeah, and that sense of nervousness that I used to, oh God, I couldn't get up in front of a room. I could not do it.
She's saying she used to not be able to get up in front of a room.
No. And then I switched it up to not mean, oh, they're looking at me. They're not looking at me, they're listening to me. They want me to share.
And so she started realizing that people actually wanted to hear her, that they want her to share, that this is important. Anything else anybody wants to say? Any other wisdom to share? Yes.
I just have a thought for you. I don't experience writer's block, and I've long since lost my stage fright. I really had, it's really true.
We know.
Yeah, you know that. But I think of a different kind of writer's block, where you're not writing what you could write. You're not writing the truth.
He's talking about a different type of writer's block where
Yeah.
you're not writing what you could write. You're not writing the truth.
Yeah, in other words, I can write a crime story tomorrow, right now, but I might not write a poem that's emotional.
He can write a crime story at the drop of a hat right now if he needed to, but it's very different, for example, to write a poem that is emotional.
Yeah.
I
just think of that as a different kind of block.
It is a different type
Yeah.
of block. It is a different type of block. Absolutely. Yeah. And you're really talking about, when you're talking about writing a poem, because poems are so much of the essence, right?
Right.
A crime story, you can go into all kinds of detail and be way out there in the weeds, but with a poem, you really need to get to the heart of the matter, which means getting to the heart of yourself, which is where those emotions live. So it's a good one to think about.
See, I think fiction writers who can't be memorless, it's the same kind of example.
Could be, although there are fiction writers who do it.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Anything else anybody has to say or wants to say before we close? And I think we're out of time. All right, well, thank you all so much. I appreciate
I just want to thank Vicki, and if you are interested, she did bring her books with her and some other books. I should be over here, sorry, guys.
Vicki did an amazing job, and I think you could see that she didn't have to be loud. So those of us who are introverts, like me, remember that.
Please speak up.
Yeah. You know what? You can hold people's attention. You can hold people's attention by focus. But Vicki brought her books and I think there's some CDs over there.
Yeah,
So-
there's CDs, I call it short meditations for a busy life. They're 10 minutes or less each. They're really helpful for people when they're wanting to center before going on stage or other situations. And the other one is a DVD that's got some very basic practices like the ones we did here. It's got the Wing Qigong and the Shao, and so I brought that to you if anybody wants it.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing those of you who are coming to the poetry launch to see how you embody what you've learned today. If you want to remember what you learn, you need to practice. So thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to
John, the group won't see announcements from the Zoom. So, well, like.
We'll figure it out. I got
yeah.
two that I know I need to do, so.
Okay.
How about that? So, I don't know for you guys at home, if you were, doing the different poses and stuff like this and trying to keep your balance, but thank you, seriously. I mean, this is 2 months in a row where we had celloists and poetry reading, and now we have stuff from Vicki about finding our presence. And, every meeting I come to, I learn something new. And that's part of the reason why I'm a member. Plus, I'm the president, and it's part of my obligation. But I hope you guys got something out of it, and it continues to spread. And one of the things that we're going to continue to do moving forward is continue to offer hybrid meetings, because there's a lot of people who can't come in person, whether they wanted to or not, who are coming in and tuning in from Berkeley, from the East Bay, from Sacramento, from Marin County, and that's the advantage of what has happened as a result of this pandemic. So in the midst of the last 2 years, yes, it's incredibly challenging. My entire presidency has been during the pandemic, trying to figure this stuff out when I didn't even know I could do it. So talk about presence. You just step forward into whatever it is that you need to do, and you do it. Now what we're gonna do is have some board announcements, and Jeannie, do you want me to make the one about the slate, and then you can talk about the fair?
Please.
Okay, so the slate, for everybody who is relatively new or been around a while, once a year, there is a nominating chair who collects information from various members who want to nominate or nominated for the various officer positions of the club, meaning president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. That has been published in the newsletter, and it is not just a rubber stamp, one and done. We also, by obligation of our bylaws as well as policies and procedures, we need to let people know if there are others that want to be nominated. Now is the opportunity to do that. Between now and the end of the month, please let Jeannie Sloan know via email. If there's somebody that you want, they can't be president because of president requirements. You have to be on the board for at least 6 months, but as vice president or as a secretary or as a treasurer, if there's somebody you want to nominate, now is the time to do so. Otherwise, next month, when Jeannie comes up and announces that slate for a vote, those nominations will close at midnight on May 31st. Another brief announcement, I will not be here next month for the regular meeting. I have won an award through work, and my wife and I are going to be celebrating down in Monterey. So for me, Judy will be stepping in as the MC and host for the day. And other than that, we have some important announcements from Jeannie Sloan about the fair. Come on up.
Thank you.
Now come over here, Jeannie, a little more this way. There you are. That's good.
Okay,
And look in here.
settle me in. Am I good?
Yes.
Okay. Nice to see everyone. I am chair of the Sonoma County Fair this year. And I have started the process. Our club subsidizes us to sell our own books at the Sonoma County Fair. The fair, we will be attending the fair on the weekends, August 5th, 6th, 7th, August 12th, 13th, and 14th. This is your opportunity to sell your published books, and it's going to be a normal fair this year. We will be back in the photographic exhibit where we belong as literary arts. I'm very excited about having a normal fair. You will be reading about further information in the newsletter. Did anybody have any questions? That's good, because you will get it all answers. Thank you.
So we've got, where's Nancy at? So Nancy, do you want to come up and just make the announcement about the contest and what's going to happen moving forward? Nancy, who was kind enough to step in and run her very first contest, has an announcement for you guys. And it's not who won or who got second or third, it's about the contest.
Okay, well, we received 18 submissions. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. We had 3 exceptional judges who worked really hard on your behalf. And we do have winners. And
They'll be announced in June.
and we'll let you know next month who won.
So my other half over there was waving at me. She's got an announcement. I don't know what it is, but as soon as she's done with that, we are going to somehow try and figure out how to have Cynthia Gregory, the anthology editor, can we tie it into the screen here?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll let Chrissy do that. We may have one other announcement, and then Cynthia, if you're ready to go, we're going to get you live here so people can see you, and we'll
Is
transfer
she
it
still
over to
there,
you.
Judy? I don't
Okay.
see her.
She should be. Chrissy.
Oh, maybe she's not there?
I don't think so.
Okay. So since we're not gonna be here next month, this is actually Sean's last time being president in front of all of you guys. So I just wanted to give like big round of applause for him, who has done this all through the whole entire pandemic.
Did you pay her?
No, he had no idea I was doing this. He came to this reluctantly. He came to this club reluctantly, and then he fell in love with it the way that I've fallen in love with it. And I gotta say, like, it's been a joy to have you as the president. I know I'm his wife, but sometimes that means I'm his biggest critic. This has been wonderful having you as president. So thank you very much for all of that.
And it's a recorded moment.
So, as Vicki said, hasta la vista! No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much. So, is Cynthia in there? Yeah. Okay. She's off. Anyway, the anthology is in full swing. Look for the newsletter. We'll get more information. Then what I will do is try and follow through with a recorded announcement of sorts so that everybody can be properly informed about what the theme is and what the topic is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She's stoked.
It should be up on the website.
It's on the
It's on the
website,
website, yeah.
but it's nice to have the personal
No,
touch
I-
where she does it. And if she's up for, she's got public speaking skills, so if she's up for doing a short, 2-minute intro about what it all is, then I'll give her that opportunity and just record it on Zoom and we'll throw it on the website, so.
I'll just announce next one.
Yeah, next month's speaker. Is there anybody else I'm forgetting about for board announcements? Roger, do you have anything?
Are there any new members here? She's ready to become a new member.
Valerie stares at us.
All right.
Tell us who you are.
Lenita Mattioli.
Lenita,
Mattioli.
how do you pronounce your last name?
Mattioli.
Mattioli. Lenita Mattioli.
With a B.
With a B.
Benita.
Benita. Oh, beautiful Mattinelli.
Yeah. Well, that's the big O in IT.
So for those who can't see, Roger is giving her a door prize, which is a real nice little.
Oh, I thought she was getting a computer.
No, she's not getting a computer. All right, Judy's going to talk to you about who's here next month, and after that, we'll bring up any other member announcements. It's your opportunity to practice what Vicki just taught us, which is presence and enunciation and power.
Now, all of us know that we have to write, and we know we need to edit what we write. And we have an opportunity to learn from Betsy Graziani Glassbinder how to get to the heart of your story through editing. I think it's going to be an exceptional experience. And Betsy has written 3 books, and she teaches people how to take a look at their work to get it down to that really great essence. So I hope you will join us, and you can join us in person or on Zoom. Thank you.
Do we have any member announcements? Neil, come on down. I'm not going to try and bring the microphone to you. You got to come up here. Neil's shy, for those of you who don't know at home. Just kidding.
Anyway,
Time's up.
I just want to let you know, my second book.
Come over here, Lynn, over here.
Sorry.
There you are.
There you
Thank
go.
you. I'm on candid camera. Anyway, my second book may be on its way to being published. I just got the materials that I need to proofread and make any corrections if necessary, but I thought I'd better let you know maybe on its way to being published before long, when, I don't know, we'll see.
That's a big deal. How long have you been a member now, Neil?
Since 2018.
4 years, and he had a vision to want to write a book, and here he is on the cusp of getting it published. So for those of you who have not yet crossed that threshold or have a desire to do it, that's part of the reason we're here. Our motto is writers helping writers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't see any comments online unless there's one.
Yeah, actually, I have one announcement.
Mention the poetry launch.
Oh, that's one I was going to mention.
All in the same place, yes.
Were you going to talk about the poetry?
No, although
But you got to come up here because they can't see you if you're standing.
Well,
up
I
there.
know, okay.
This is Pamela Heck. She's going to talk about what she's going to talk about.
Right, surprise. Is there anybody here that's an illustrator as well as a writer? Okay, a few of us. So art and writing are very closely connected. So I just wanted to tell you that this evening, for the first time in 2.5 years, the Cloverdale Arts Alliance Gallery, of which I am a resident artist and I am the featured resident artist tonight, we're having our first artist reception in a long time. We're very, very excited, and I would love to see some of you. It's not that far, honestly. Once you get past Healdsburg, it's like a wonderful drive, and it's a beautiful day, and it doesn't get dark. So, and there's some great restaurants up there, so come up and make a night of it. It's really a wonderful event. Thank you.
And Roger has a proof copy of the next poetry anthology, and he's getting it right now, but for those who, I think there was over 50 poems accepted, and Linda Reed has a huge party going on 29th, right? Sunday the 29th. Roger's going to show you what it looks like, and if you are in here, you've gotten an invitation from either Les or Fran or Linda, probably Linda, for the party. You need to RSVP because she needs to plan how many chairs and how many people, and it is a potluck, and it's incredibly fun. It's the first time we've been able to do something like this. Chrissy and I didn't even get to do it for Remember When, so if you're in here, show up. If you're not, show up to support your fellow authors.
235 pages, over 100 poets, some who paid a fee or something to get their 5 poems in, Pam. But no, so there's multiple poems by some of our best poets, and I proofed the entire book. I read all the poems last month along with Les. And it's a fabulous book. It's our best collection to date. And 38 or 39 of you next Sunday are going to be reading from that. So it's going to be a great event at Linda Reed's house. And I think it's a potluck as usual, but make sure you're practiced and able to project and bring that energy in and out, because it's going to be a great day. Thank you. Thanks, Sharon.
I'm gonna be on sale at the event.
Right. So if you don't remember anything else today, the 3 things are
I just want to make
passion,
but, no.
presence,
Sorry.
and power. Passion, presence, power, right?
Yes, the author
Jeannie.
support group's back on.
Yeah, and Jeannie Jusitis actually had her first author support group here in person before the meeting, like we used to have to do. So here she is to tell you about it in case you want to show up next time.
Okay, am I in the right spot here?
Yeah.
Okay, so we met today. I kidnapped 5 people from different spots, and we had a little start to author support live again, and that's what we'll be doing again from now on. And so if you want to come at noon next time from 12 to 12:45 before the meeting, come and join us, and you can share your failures and your successes and bring questions. And that's it.
I will be there on the 29th, but for those of you who won't see me next month, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great meeting.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm on until the 30th of June. But
You're
you
the
know what?
immediate
I'm
past
on
pre-
for a whole nother year.
You're just
'cause I'm
become the immediate
president.
past president, Sean.
You can't get away from this thing. It's like, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Writers helping writers. Anyway, thanks, you guys.
All right, if you don't, I'll just drag it up there.